if you watched our bedding test video, there's a few little points I thought you might be interested in, just as to why I made my final choices and things that I probably forgot to say in the other video. But the first thing is regarding the card bedding. All of these beddings are actually considered safe. The only reason I chose the Walmsley, apart from the Finder card and the Green Mile, is because my personal preference is not to use printed and coloured paper. And although I at first really didn't like the Walmsley because it's a horse bedding, I thought it was too big and wouldn't be soft enough. The minute I saw the rats playing in it and moving it about and carrying the pieces about, I realised it had a really good play value. And something I forgot to mention in the other video is that card makes a wonderful soft landing. So you need a fairly deep layer of all of the substrate beddings, but the card, I find, if you have a rat like Violet who insists on jumping off of shelves rather than using the ladder or the tube, this makes a really soft springy landing, and also, obviously that is useful if you have a rat that has a fall as well. You need to make sure your cage is as safe as possible, but if you have a rat that jumps regularly like Violet, it's very important there is a soft landing for them. So that is one really good advantage of a soft springy landing. Also, the card has saved me quite a lot of money, but there is a big disadvantage which I think I forgot to mention in my other video, and that is it's so bulky that it's really hard to dispose of, especially if you live in an area like we do where we have restrictions on how much rubbish we can actually put out. So I have to borrow a neighbour's bin because I just could not fit all my rubbish into there with the bedding. So that could be a major problem for you, especially if you don't have a car and you can't get to the local tip to dispose of the bedding. Now with the Oxbow, it's not something I'd ever use regularly, but I think that it really does have a place, especially for old and sick rats, and I would prefer to use that rather than vet bed because it is disposable. I haven't got to keep washing the vet bed, and it is safe. Obviously, like all the other paper and card, it's biodegradable, so if you get a rat that's confused, maybe he's had a brain tumour or a stroke or something, and they tend to confuse rats, tend to actually nibble and try and eat their bedding, so that is another safety factor, that is a much safer bedding than fleece or vet bed. Now with the pellets, I found that having the pellets separately in the litter tray rather than just as a substrate, it can make it easier to litter train your rats. Although with our girls, we did always found it easy to litter train girls, but I think maybe if I'd had this separate pellets in the litter tray and a separate substrate bedding, it may have helped our boys who refused to be litter trained. So some people do mix the pellets in with card, and that's something you can do to make the card more absorbent and odour resistant. But if you've got a rat that's going to go to the toilet all over the cage and you're desperate to litter train, I would stick to the pellets in your litter tray and the card as your substrate. Now the Back to Life, as I mentioned, is hard to get hold of for us in the UK. I do love it, and it is affordable just using it for a litter tray if you're just using 1 or 2 cages. The thing I love most about the Back to Life was the fact that it does absorb the water really well, and it holds its shape even after several hours, and slightly less dust than Back to Nature. But the advantage of Back to Nature is it's easily available either online, or you can walk into a store and buy Back to Nature in most of the big pet stores. So that's very important, especially if you suddenly find yourself low on bedding. But of course you should always keep a good supply. The other thing with the bales of card that I should mention is they're very, very heavy. I cannot even move the Walmsley Premier Bed bale of card. We have a lovely DPD delivery man who brings all the bedding right into the house for me, and then I can try and shove it and move it from one place to another, but usually I have to have help. And regarding the paper bedding, as I mentioned before, the main advantage for me with the finer card is it's so easy to tear. Now that's very important if you've got weak hands or arthritis. So I'm very happy to use both of the pellets, both of the papers, and the comfort paper for sick rats or baby rats. So my choices are purely personal and what our rats actually seem to enjoy most. So good luck choosing a paper bedding, and I hope that these 2 videos will have helped you in some way to make your choices.